Let's talk about it. Broadcasting live from North Nashville, Tennessee. North Nashville spans from Metro Center down to the border of Bicentennial Mall, including the neighborhoods of Bordeaux, Buena Vista, Parkwood Estates, Germantown, Haynes Manor, Jefferson Street, Fisk Park, Cumberland Gardens, Oak Valley, Enchanted Hill, and many others. It's perhaps best known for the 3 universities housed here, including Tennessee State University, Fisk University, and Meharry Medical College. North Nashville is also home to the Tennessee Titans practice facility. The Tennessee Titans will begin construction on an expansion project at St. Thomas Sports Park, which will almost double its current footprint in Nashville's Metro Center neighborhood. The plan includes 60,000 square feet in additions, including a new building situated along one of the practice fields, and major renovation of spaces within the existing 75,000 square foot building.
Now live from North Nashville, Dr. William Head. Let's talk about it.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to NorthNashvilleTV.com, the voice of the voiceless, for a new edition of Let's Talk About It. It is tough times lately with all the things that go on around us on an everyday basis. To find ourselves in some of the places and spaces that we are now is just shocking and off-putting, to say the least. But Monday, a week ago, I traveled to the Washington, D.C. area to participate in a golf tournament that my daughter invited me to because she had some hand in the golf tournament. Long story short, we made the trip, my wife and I, and on the third hole of the tournament, my ankle began to hurt, and I played like that for as long as I could, and I said I've done something that injured the ankle. To shorten this story even more, I realized when I got back on the way back home, driving with the ankle throbbing, that it was not an ankle injury because it had not responded to ice in reducing the swelling or to anything else I did to it. And I said, I've got a gout problem going on. And and as I got home and started to attack the gout problem, I find myself having some real dark ideations and found myself in a very unusual mood. I'm sitting and wondering what in the world this ankle is going to do to me. And I gained a great deal of respect for folks who take pain medications. Let me tell you, my pain was minimal. It was short-lived. People who deal with pain every day, I'm much more sympathetic to your plight than I was before this. But anyway, this pain and what have you put me in a place that I'd never been in before. I'd never been down like that before, and the pain was laying on the depressive mood, and I said, well, now I'm a guy who goes to the YMCA 4 or 5 days a week. I work out trying to stay as useful as I can, and here I am moaning and groaning. And I said, well, what in the world could it be? And then I came to the conclusion that the effect of my mentality was result of all that we are going through, all that we are watching as a 200 plus year old country is going through the dismantling of all that it has represented throughout its existence. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We the people, in order to form a more perfect union. We the people, period. We are the country. And my thought pattern became, I am basically going through what a lot of people are going through. I'm going through a questioning period of what the hell is going on. And I was at a point where I was saying, well, maybe this is not worth it. Speaking out about injustice, talking to people about moving the country forward like it was designed to be, retaining, restructuring, and making democracy even stronger. We've got millions of people. There were 2 million people who died for democracy in World War I, World War II, and the Korean War. 2 million American lives. Then we come back with the Vietnam War, and we find ourselves with 78,000 casualties. And now we got one man who's tearing down what all those lives were spent on. And it blows my mind. At least it was almost about to blow my mind. Because this thing is real. This is a very petty, vengeful, narcissistic individual who is using the power of the presidency to get revenge on people. He wants to bring black men down to the point where they work for minimum wage, 18 hours a day, and take home $18. He wants to close down the public school system in order to not educate the folks that he doesn't live with. He doesn't want to educate poor white folks, people of color, women. And I have been wondering about the education deal. And again, usually it is black folks and red folks that are being put upon. But this education thing is a thing of controlling white women, because white women show up in places where white men used to show up as judges, as lawyers, as doctors, as engineers, and they are far more accomplished than their competition. So they get the top jobs. What seems to be the aim of the executive administration is to turn requirements and expertise and experiences on their ear to enable some men, white men, to become more successful than they are. It's a turn for mediocrity. It's a turn to keep the oncoming rush of black men who are working hard to become lawyers, doctors, and what have you. This is pushing to slow the rise of white women in corporate America. People that he cannot intimidate. You say people he cannot intimidate? It's hard to intimidate a woman. You may, if you physically beat her, she is looking for a way to get even. So you know he is trying his best to lower the standard for this country's coming generations. So mediocre white men can become lawyers and doctors and judges just because they're white. That ain't happening right now. And that is upsetting white men to no end. And that particular level of thought is where I found myself when I came out of that. I said, the hell with this. Let me do what I've got to do when I do it and the best that I can do it. Death is not the worst thing that happens to us. The worst thing that happens is that we are dead even while we are alive. And now a word from our sponsors.
Are you looking for a way to successfully advertise your business or ministry? Look no further than North Nashville's online TV station. Our platform gives you the opportunity to showcase your business or ministry to a wide range of viewers. With our advertising service, you get access to creative professionals who can help spread your message and reach potential customers in a cost-effective manner. We understand the importance of creating an impactful advertisement, and we are committed to helping you achieve your goals.
Wade's Lawn Service is your one-stop solution for all your outdoor needs. We offer comprehensive residential and commercial lawn care, expert landscaping and design, professional fertilization, leaf blowing, and seasonal maintenance services. Our team of skilled professionals will transform your outdoor space into a stunning oasis, boosting your property's curb appeal and value.
Hello, my name is Deborah Wade, and this is my husband, Ira Wade, and we are here at Wade's Lawn Service, located at 1215 Louisville Highway.
Don't let lawn care stress you out any longer. Visit www.wadeslawnservice.com or call us at 615-766-8347 today to experience the difference of a well-maintained, beautiful lawn without the hassle.
Looking for a way to boost your health and wellness? Join us every third Tuesday at 1815 Knoll Street from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. where the 37208 Health Coalition and North Nashville TV are hosting a free health fair exclusively for the North Nashville community. Starting January 21st from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., enjoy access to health screenings, expert advice, and wellness resources. Prioritize your health with us. It's free and right in your neighborhood. Join us every third Tuesday at the Health Fair, where a powerhouse lineup of organizations awaits to support your well-being. From mental wellness with healing minds and souls to life-saving insights from the Vanderbilt Memory and Alzheimer's Center and essential community services by Meharry Medical College's Hope Van, this is your chance to connect with experts committed to enhancing your health. Don't miss the opportunity to engage with leaders like the Nashville Black Literacy Coalition and Care Portal. Come see how we can make a difference in your life. Fill out the form below and join our newsletter and learn how you can live a healthier life.
Hello, my name is Glenn Carter. I'm the owner here at Carter's Family Florist. We've been serving all over Nashville and Middle Tennessee for the last 25 years. We do flowers for all occasions. We do weddings, funerals. We send flowers out of town. I have a host of plants, corsages for the prom, a dozen roses at Valentine, a dozen roses for Mother's Day. We do balloons, fruit baskets, and things of that nature, and we do deliver. So always come to Carter's Family Florist when you're in need of your flower needs. Address is 1822 26th Avenue North, That's Nashville, Tennessee, 37208. My phone number is 615-256-3777. Thank you for choosing Carter's Family Florist.
And we're back with my special guest, who is a recurring expert on everything, not just everything, but everything, Dr. Edward Hills of Meharry Medical College. Good afternoon, Doc.
Good afternoon. It's always a pleasure to come and speak with you guys. It's quite an honor.
Hey, well, it's always interesting and informative to talk with you. You're going to talk to us today on a topic I have absolutely no idea about. So I'm going to let you go right into what you're going to tell us.
Unfortunately, that is a very common aptitude in terms of human trafficking. This is something we have sort of ignored and sort of swept under the rug, but it's got to be such a huge problem that we need to now educate ourselves about human trafficking and what it means to the community, what it means to African American people. So human trafficking is a very fast-growing criminal industry, second only to drug trafficking. It is a $1.5 to $2 billion a year market, and it is something that we all are seeing right before our eyes and maybe not realizing it. What is human trafficking? Human trafficking is control over another person for the purpose of exploitation, be it for profit, for property, for sex, or what have you. Vulnerable persons may be exploited into prostitution, forced labor, servitude, various forms of modern slavery, and even the removal of organs. So how does this come about? Well, the first step is for the traffickers to recruit. And unfortunately, the recruitment sometimes is something is some person very close to you. We know that traditionally, our intimate partners, husbands, perhaps family members, even employers. I hate to think about pimps being employers, but I guess they are in a way. And of course, the new types of recruitment, marriage brokers, particularly from the Asia and Europe, the adoption firms that are providing adoptees, and of course, organized crime and the gangs. So what are the numbers? What do we know about this? When does it occur? How often does it occur? Well, we know that based on the data that we have worldwide, that it's believed that human trafficking occurs on Earth between 28 million and 40 million people are being trafficked. That is 3.5 people for every 1,000 individuals on Earth. Worldwide, 77% of this is forced labor, so most of it's men. And worldwide, 23% is sexual exploitation, but it is absolutely the reverse in America, of course. Bonded labor, debt bondage, child sex trafficking, domestic servitude, forced child labor, unlawful recruitment of child soldiers, labor trafficking, and of course, sex trafficking of adult women, which is different from child sex trafficking, and we will discuss that. We know nationally in America that the the best assessment that we have of uh, trafficking, human trafficking, is based on the National Human Trafficking Telephone Hotline. This was established by a nonprofit known as Polaris and has been receiving calls since 2007. They received approximately 433,000 calls and other signaling. Most of that, of course, is telephone calls, probably over 400,000. The rest of it being emails and texts, that type of thing. They have identified 134,000 victims and recorded 7,000 convictions since 2009. The National Hotline reported in its last annual report in 2023 5,572 sex trafficking cases, 1,021 sex and labor trafficking cases combined, and about 1,500 labor trafficking cases. The American College of OBGYN reported in its recommendations regarding human trafficking that according to the Global Slavery Index, that approximately 400,000 Americans, or 1.3 persons per thousand, are victims of human trafficking in America.
400,000 people in this country.
In this country, it's probably more because actually that was released a couple of years ago.
Okay.
So, and this is really important. The pediatrics. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children reported that 18,400 child sex trafficking inquiries were received on their hotline, and they estimate that of the 28,000 children who were reported missing in 2023, 4,800 of them were likely subjected to child sex trafficking.
Wow.
So, who are the people actually who are vulnerable, particularly in the United States? We know that of the 100% of all the trafficking that's been reported, that 70 to 80% is sex trafficking in America. And we know that of that number, 90% are women and girls. We know the homelessness is puts one at risk, poverty, childhood sexual abuse. And what that, in so many instances, that doesn't begin after they leave home, it begins before they leave home. That's why they leave home. And so these runaway kids who don't have anything and who've already been exposed to this kind of thing end up being easy targets. Substance abuse. How many of these people actually are mentally ill or have neurodevelopmental disorders? And of course, the new group that everybody's talking about, there's a large group that's been with us all along, of course, it's the gender nonconformity group. They are really at risk. And certainly, I think the thing that's brought all this to our attention is the migration from across the southern border and those gangs that have brought that type of practice along with them. So there is a federal act that's designed to protect victims of trafficking. So the so-called Sex Trafficking Victims Protection Act. Sex trafficking among adult women refer to the commercial sex act that is induced by force, fraud, and coercion. Labor trafficking, of course, refers to involuntary servitude, peonage, debt bondage, slavery through force, fraud, and coercion. I want to be very clear about two things. One, if any person is subjected to trafficking who's less than 18 years of age and is being forced to do something, that's trafficking. That's automatic trafficking if they're of age. But adult consensual sex trade, where people have come to an agreement, they said yes, I want to do this. Poor labor practice, where somebody hires you and got terrible conditions, not paying enough money, that does not mean doesn't reach the criteria for human trafficking. Human trafficking must have an element of force, fraud, and coercion, and not be voluntary at any time.
Force, fraud, and coercion.
Must be coercion.
Okay.
Prosecution are the three P's of the TVPA Act are prosecution of perpetrators, protection and assistance for our victims, and of course, wherever possible, prevention. That's where we come in as practitioners, as everyday people, as doctors, or whatever, that we have to, number one, begin to be aware of the clues of people who may be being trafficked. One, having the accompanying person answer the patient's questions. They don't, you know, there's somebody else who wants to speak for this person. They're having difficulty talking to that person alone. They don't want to be left alone. Body language that suggests that they're in fear, anxious, and distrust. They're shifting their position. They're looking away. They're appearing withdrawn. They're not having any eye contact whatsoever. Physical findings and the history don't match up. And of course, these people very often are uh, tortured or whatever. So they have physical injuries of varying stages of healing, meaning that they've been mistreated over time. So, what are some of the things that we can do in terms of if you come in contact with a person as a regular lay person or as a professional? Remember that what you're trying to ascertain is whether these people have freedom and whether they have power over themselves. So, some of the things that you might ask or make recommendations might be something like, can you leave a job or your situation if you want to? Can you go and come as you please? Have you ever been physically harmed? Where do you sleep and eat? Do you sleep on a bed, cot, or on the floor? Do you have to ask permission to eat, sleep, or go to the bathroom? Are there locks and windows to prevent you from leaving? This is a really big one. Has anyone threatened your family?
Man.
Has your identification documentation been taken away from somebody else that's got all your identifying paperwork and so forth? You don't have anything, you're relying on somebody else to have that. Then sexually, you might ask someone, is anyone forcing you to do anything that you do not want to do? So once we have these questions or these things, thoughts in our minds, there are certain things that we see which become facts. We call them indicators of trafficking. Unsure of the day of the week, the time of the month, they're disoriented. They're not in control of their personal identification. The stories that they set are scripted. Whatever they're talking about makes no sense, and it has nothing to do with why they're there. They've just been told what to say. They're afraid to answer questions, work long hours, exhausted, hungry. Someone else controls their money. They wear the same clothes no matter what the weather's like or what the situation is. They're very odd living and working spaces, and they may sleep and work where sleep where they work, or they may work on sites that are secured, or cameras, barbed wire, tinted windows. Even when they owe debts to their employer. So, what are some of the things when we think about maybe this person's trafficking for labor? What are some of the questions we ask somebody when you're concerned about labor trafficking? Did you get the job you were promised, or did you come under false pretenses? Are you fearful of your employer, or do you owe your employer money that you don't feel that you can pay him back? Do you fear for harm to your families? Or that's what they use a lot on the guys. You're working long hours, 16 hours a day, and of course living around people in very cramped spaces. The kind of professions that mostly this encompasses, of course, are housekeepers, live-in help, construction workers, and of course, farm workers. Indications of sex trafficking. When do you feel that this may be sex trafficking? The individual works in the commercial sex industry, escort, exotic dancers, prostitutes, massage parlors, and please don't forget about pornography. Signs of having sex with multiple partners per day. They have pimps, or male or female, boyfriends, husbands, who are directing their activities. Tattoos of branding of ownership. We got a lot of guys down in South America or in Central America now because just because they have tattoos.
Say that again.
We have a lot of guys that the federal government sent to uh,
El
Central America
Salvador,
because
yeah.
they had El Salvador because they had the wrong tattoos.
Okay.
And they use the language of the sex industry and time, how much time, how long you got, how much money you got, whatever. Inappropriate clothing for adventure or weather. Coming to our clinics with 8-inch heels on and short dresses, whatever. They're not looking like other people. Signs of physical abuse, drug addiction, alcohol addiction, malnourished. The main thing that these ladies tell us is that they feel worthless and invisible. And so they use their drugs sometimes to separate what's happening to their body from their mind. Physical findings that we look for as professionals are abnormal uh, female bleeding, unintended pregnancies, unsafe abortions, and that can lead to a person losing their lives in states like Texas and Florida and Tennessee, where it's totally illegal to have abortions done. So even if the person had an abortion done in another state, they come here with complications. Nobody wants to touch them because they don't want to get involved with this abortion thing. Because if a doctor, somebody's in the case of the doctor did that, or maybe had a part in it, then this doctor might have spent $1 million to clear his name.
In a
And so
lawsuit.
people
Yeah.
are very unlikely to help these people. And then particularly look at them and think that what kind of profession they're in. And these people are saying, that, I'm not going to do that. Vaginal trauma. So we know that besides the normal coitus, and of course, sometimes people bring along all kind of instruments and toys to use on these ladies, and there's a lot of trauma. There's very high risk of sexually transmitted infection, gonorrhea, chlamydia, syphilis, hepatitis, and they are at extremely high risk of contracting HIV. And of course, as we've mentioned before, they have wounds that are old, new, and so you know that they've been mistreated. The latest thing that has interested the medical profession, of course, are the people who are themselves are the victims. Are these people who are not able to defend themselves because of certain um, disabilities? So now what we're looking at now is the different types of disabilities that these women may have, because we're beginning to not look at them as just a number. We want to know some more about who they are. So in the neurodevelopmental disorder group, there's people who have attention deficit hyperactivity, or so-called ADHD. Uh, when they're kids, the kind of kids that are hard to manage. They might even torture animals and stuff like that as children, but as they get older, they are very impatient, fidgety. They can't focus, terrible mood swings. And so, they have certain problems. Autism, unfortunately, most autistic people are diagnosed within the first 2 years of life, which gives us a little bit of a chance to work with them. But we think that it primarily usually shows up in males, and these are kids who do constantly doing the same motions, saying the same things over and over again. Maybe don't look like normal people in a way. Of course, there's a big spectrum. So some autistic people are brilliant. They just are brilliant in certain ways. So it goes a full spectrum. Intellectual disorders. These are people that you recognize right away. People who have Down syndrome, fetal alcohol syndrome, um, what we call fragile X syndrome. They look a certain way. They can't learn that their IQs are less than 70. And so, these are the people that as soon as you see them, you call them, retarded people. But other kind of learning disorders are people who are perfectly normal, but because of either their family genetics or whatever, they can't really learn very well, and they have very low IQs as well. But they're called learning disorder people. What are some of the other kind of people we worry about who've been exposed to all of this stuff? What about people with severe mental disorders? Schizophrenia. These are people who have hallucinations. They're seeing things, smelling things, touching things that nobody else does around them. Or they may be delusional, where you know, they misinterpret reality, or they speak in a way that nobody understands what they're saying, or their thoughts are not clear. Then there's a bipolar group, people who are very high and get a very low. The high is not so hard to manage, but the lows can go on into uh, homicide, suicide, and all of that. And then there's the group in the middle we call schizoaffective. And these are people who usually are coming from the bipolar spectrum, but going over into the schizophrenic spectrum. We see it in obstetrics, which I practice, with women who have postpartum psychosis. Average person having a baby has postpartum depression, but most people are over that within a short time. But there's a subset of people who actually develop a type of psychosis related to depression, related to pregnancy. They takes them all the way to schizophrenia, and the next thing you know, these are the women that you read about who kill their kids. Okay, and they can't help because they're schizophrenic, but they usually end up being punished for that. The other kind of folks are people who have mood disorders, PTSD. When we say PTSD, we think about what? The war.
War.
That's what, yeah, the kind of experiences men have when they're coming back from war, or maybe had on several rotations into the theater. But it can also come from domestic abuse, sexual abuse, uh, incarceration, and hold your hat on for this one: racial discrimination.
Wow. Yes, sir.
Okay, so flashbacks, nightmares, avoiding certain situations or certain people just because you're uncomfortable. Uh, I think we can all think about relating perhaps to that. People who
Yeah.
have depression. One of the most common things we have in America is depression. 10% of all women have clinical depression. 6% of all American men have been treated for depression. So depression is a big deal. But on the other spectrum is anxiety people, who flying high, or they have what we call panic attacks all the time. They have so much obsessive compulsivity that they can't finish anything. They got to have everything perfect, and so they just are not able to finish anything and require uh, what you call antidepressants to sort of help them. And finally, we have what we call behavioral disorders. What about people who are into substance abuse? Um, that's bad behavior. Alcoholism, cocaine, opiates, methamphetamines, those kind of things. What about people with eating disorders? People who are bulimic, they love to eat, but then they have to choke themselves and throw it back up. Or who have anorexia nervosa, where they don't eat anything hardly at all, and then they also purge themselves, so they look like skin and bones. I believe they're probably on the opposite side. I'm talking now about the people who are actually the perpetrators. They probably have what we call conduct disorders. These are aggressive behaviors, bullying, fighters. They like to use weapons. They're physically and sexually abusive to other people. Um, I guess they call themselves gangster. So there's been some research now recently about on these people, on victims to see, where they are. So one of the studies, looking at commercially sexually exploited youth with neurodevelopmental, mental, and behavioral disorders, a study of 269 people. They were prior to the age of 18. They found that only 26% of them actually ever sought any health uh, at all, health care. And of those victims, the ones who were most likely to seek health care, of course, were the people with the worst problems, and that was people with schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorders, and bipolar. But when they did go for health care, they basically usually had bad experiences because people are not very tolerant of these people. I ran across something I was in my reading that had to do with the BIPOC patients. I kept seeing BIPOC. What the hell is that?
Yeah,
When
what
I
the hell
found
is
out
that?
finally, what the hell is that is Black Indigenous People of Color. Now, all of the people that they studied were American, and all the people who doing the study were American. So who are these Black Indigenous People of Color? You got it. Black women. That's what they're talking about.
Okay.
They had a way to go around that. So the Black Indigenous people of color who are female and disabled are virtually absent from the human trafficking disclosure. This underrepresentation illustrates the need for examining the intersection of gender, disability, and race. Day wrote in 2019, she argued that targeted racism is institutional, it is systemic, and structural, which reinforces barriers to support individual Black women. Huggins in 2021 stated this was an uneven equal protection under the human trafficking laws, where Black women and girls are continuously arrested and detained for prostitution offenses who themselves are being self-trafficked. Nobody asks if about whether they're being trafficked or not. They just put them in jail and wait for somebody to come get them out. They're not getting a lot of attention. Is what is being said.
What that sounds like is a systemic issue that people
It
in
is
power.
systemic.
Yeah.
So we're not, or our leaders are not recipients of the protections of the human trafficking laws because the people who are arresting them are not interested in
And protecting them.
trying to determine the protection. Yes.
Yeah.
So here's the new kids on the block, and I'm gonna say new kids because these two have been around for a long time. But what has become a big issue, I think, part of the reason that we have the administration in Washington that we have has to do with this non-confirming sexual identity. I think that we are all been accustomed to and really accepted the role of women, and of course the LGBTQIP2SAA. So what does that mean?
Okay.
Well, L is lesbian, G is gay,
Run that by me one more time. L what?
LG dot B dot T dot Q dot Q dot I dot P dot 2S dot A dot A. That's the full arrangement of what's being used today. But
Okay.
there's only one group who's in trouble. That's really got the society upset. I think that women who love women, men who love men, the lesbian and gay, these people can marry, they have good jobs, and be elected to public office. So, bisexual, nobody knows who they are. People who have sex with both sexes, so that's a thing, but it doesn't. I'm gonna skip the T for a minute. We go straight to queer. These are people who enjoy present themselves in the other sex, but they may not be gay. They may be straight, but they just like to. And then some of them, of course, are gay. The questioning of the young guys, the young people now who can't quite make up their mind. They're fluid. They can't make up their mind what they want to do. So we call them questioning or fluid. Um,
Okay.
then now there's something that's very legitimate. This is the intersex. These are people who have one set of organs that represent perhaps female, but their ovaries are not ovaries. Their ovaries are gonads. The testosterone that
Right.
normally form testosterone, but they don't have the gene to process testosterone, so they become by default we're female. They have vaginas and all that, but they don't have a uterus. But they have everything else that makes them female, and so that's been a thing in some of this professional basketball thing. Uh, the pansexuals, these are people who like everybody. They get attracted to men, they get attracted to women. They just like everybody. The two S, the two spirited, those are people who from birth can have both male and female characteristics. Physically and in their minds, the way they're wired, they go either way. And then the androgynous people, one of those A's at the end, are people who can't tell what sex they are at birth because they have ambiguous genitalia. And of course, asexual are people who don't have any significant interest in sex in their lives, unless they really find somebody really they admire a lot and have a respect for. They might be attracted, but basically they don't care about sex. But the people who got America on fire are the transgender people, people who have what we call sexual dystrophy. They're not happy with the sex they're in. Their birth sex. They want to be the other sex. And
Transsexuals.
so so the transgender people, they want the men. They want to use the ladies' bathrooms. They want to use certain pronouns to suggest that they actually are females, even though they are males. Um, they want to have uh, participate in team sports and also in the military. And the military's got a big problem because the new president got to put those people out in the military. So these people they want sex affirming medications and that has got a lot of people really upset. There's a law has been made all over the country about children getting sex affirming medication before the age of 18, and of course the surgery to change the sex altogether. And that's where the military they putting all the people out who have these sexual uh, surgeries. They put them out. The Trump's put them all out, and so society is very upset about people wanting to use these bathrooms and shared bathrooms and what have you, and that's all kind of being pushed back to a more conservative position. And so a lot of people, I think, because of the Democrats having uh, so much tolerance, and the conservatives who just feel like it's totally ungodlike, it caused us some votes in the last election. But that's my opinion. I want to say a few words, if I may, about what's going on in Tennessee. We know that in 2011, that the TBI, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, and Vanderbilt University did a study to address the concerns regarding human trafficking in Tennessee. That same year, the TBI set up a hotline. 2015, four special agents were funded and assigned to develop criminal cases were indicated, and these were causing the grand divisions of the state. And they were also required to teach human trafficking training to police, state agencies, and departments that likely would encounter human trafficking. Of the about 45,000 people were actually trained. In addition to those individuals from colleges, universities, faith-based groups, victim service groups, hotel and hospitality staffs, and other miscellaneous organizations. We looked at data from 2019 until the present, and we know that about 7,000 calls were made into the trafficking hotline on the TBI. And we know that these were basically divided in the grand divisions of the state, like 175 were out of West Tennessee, 400 and some were out of Middle Tennessee, Uh, lower East Tennessee, they got the East and the lower and the upper. The lower Tennessee had 208 calls, whereas upper had 327. So that if you added all the two grand Eastern division, they were over 500. So they were actually the largest of
In East
the
Tennessee alone?
the two this East Tennessee, as they call it, upper and lower.
Okay. So
Okay,
they had over
so
500?
over five. If you add the two East Tennessee's up, they had over 500.
My
The next
goodness.
thing we're looking at are the sex of these trafficking. Only 44 cases of labor trafficking was recorded, but between 2017 to 2024, there were adult sex trafficking, women above the age of 18 above. There was 223. Child sex trafficking, children from 0 to 17, 514 cases.
Do that again.
More than double of that are adults.
517 cases for children and,
Children
and
and 200
223 for adults. So
for
somebody's
adults.
not taking care of children.
Well, children are the ones that I'm telling you. What we don't realize is these are not kids from South America. These are not kids from Canada.
These are
These are
kids from
American
these are
kids.
kids from
They
Lebanon,
will, these
Tennessee,
are,
and Carthage,
yeah,
Tennessee, and oh
yeah.
man,
So that this now, so as it turned out in our state, the kids who the largest group was at 13 to 17. There was 435 kids in that age group. And the age group of 0 to 6 was 49. The age group of 7 to 12 was 109. So if you add all those up together, and so 18 and above was only 220. So if you add all those numbers at 435, 109, 49, you see that the children tremendously trafficking, and they're mostly runaways. And of course, 18 and over are the adult women. Well, the number of operations, in other words, these are TBI operations that were done starting in 2015 through 2024. Um, the when I say operations, I mean sting operations, where they were going out to arrest people. The largest number of operations were 2024s. There are 31 of such operations. But curiously, in 2021, when they only had 13 operations, they had more people arrested. 2021, we arrested 137 people. 2024, we arrested 113. So the number of operations doesn't always reflect the number of individuals who are arrested, but overall, uh, uh, the activity in terms of working these cases have gone up quite a lot, and so I think that the uh, GBA GBI is to be commended for that. The last thing I want to mention, too, of course, are where did you go, or who helps us with actually these kind of cases. We know that from a national perspective, the main organization is Polaris. That is the nonprofit that provides the national human trafficking uh, hotline, and so they're sort of in this country the top people that we want to go to. Internationally or nationally, the Freedom Network USA is the largest coalition working in human trafficking in the United States. In Tennessee, of course, the TBI hotline is available. And each one of our grand divisions, there is organizations that are contacted, and they have contacts with all the other people. There are many organizations involved with this but there's certain umbrella organizations. In Middle Tennessee, where we live, that organization is Angora, Angora. It was formerly called, up until a year or two ago, it was formerly known as the End Slavery of Tennessee organization. That's Middle Tennessee. In West Tennessee, uh, there's Restore Corps, it's called, and that's Memphis.
You say Stork Forum?
Store, as it's it's Restore,
Oh,
Restore,
Restore.
Restore Corps. Um, in Upper East Tennessee, it's the Community Coalition Against Human Trafficking. They call it the CCAHT. In Lower East Tennessee, it's called the Street Grace, GRACE. And these are people, once either the hotline is contacted or the people who actually do the referring in, and that could be just from any group or any group of people who might be doing that. For instance, people who will be referring these in can be so, and in fact, primarily are social workers and case managers. But a lot of citizens do referrals, and of course, even the victims themselves will call in. What you don't see much, and it was kind of surprising to me, and I guess it was because they're going in other directions, but what was considered to be family referrals is very low. So healthcare-wise, emergency rooms where we get most of the contact, they're coming to emergency, or they go to convenience clinics. They don't necessarily go to the doctor per se, but they may show up in a family medicine clinic or psychiatry units, and we in OBGYN see them, particularly when these are unplanned pregnancies and pregnancies with very, very young kids. We see a lot of 14-year-olds and kids like that, that that we actually turn over to social services because they very often are being trafficked. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. It's something we need to bring into the forefront and not being pushed back to society, because these are people that very often we look down upon. And we certainly think that Black women are treated in a slightly less sensitive way.
Of course. They if they're out there, they're out there because they want to, not because they're being forced. That
Well,
is.
yeah, but that's not true. That's the
I'm saying
assumption.
that's the
Yeah, yeah.
perception.
It's a perception, and it's not true.
So when you do the count of on the basis of color and race, what happens is the number of Black women who are being trafficked is reduced tremendously, simply because there is an assumption that her position is something that she created or is
Yeah.
huh.
In cooperating with, and this is.
Right.
But I tell you what, and this is something I didn't bring out. I think I probably should. When we look at the numbers of different populations from different parts of the world, women from Africa who come to the United States are not even. They don't even show up in the number.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so minuscule. They're not in this. They're not part of this.
That was the point I was making in the fact that the perception is they're not being forced, that not being coerced. They are in it for the money, which means that they are not counted. They don't register on
But
the.
but the perception is that, and I had that perception. I'm sure most of us do. But those girls not even getting the money half the time. I mean, they're being forced to hand it over or get beat up or whatever, and then we get started. So, a lot of times they're very. Some of them are business women. Okay, But a lot of these people, they from the very
But
beginning, they were forced into it, and but no, who cares? And nobody's looking into that.
what what uh, what you also saying is that a 14-year-old child who happens to be black who walks in a place where her particular predicament is already, uh, shall we say, pre-perceived as being on her own. They don't even ask her the kind of questions that they'd ask a white young lady.
Possibly. Of course, now these kids will do, they'll be misled to make themselves look older than they actually are, to put on makeup and one thing and the other, so that it becomes very difficult sometimes, even if they're 16, 17 years old, to tell whether they're grown or not. So they you know, so that's part of the problem. But the other problem is of course, if even if they are legitimately adult, uh, nobody assumes in no way, no how that this person might be being trafficked. You
Yeah, that
know?
that
Okay.
means that black women who are missing
Yeah.
are never looked for
Yeah.
seriously. I'm very big on crime shows on TV, and
Yeah.
and I watch them, and when they talk about when you watch them, you see that the only way that a black woman is really searched for is if the family can provide enough influence from somewhere to force the issue. Well, she'll come home. She ran away. She, uh, and of course, the other people, as soon as somebody says she's missing, oh, we've got to do this. We need a task force for searching for little Linda, and little Linda is in the basement at home. Nobody's seen her in 5 years, and her father's got her in the basement. She's 14 and had 2 children already. So it is well, it's the system. It's been that way. So
Well, I think that as we begin to learn more about how to evaluate the people and begin to look beyond just the act itself, and I think society will begin to take note of this, and maybe even institute procedures whereby arresting officers will have to also call a psychologist or somebody in and get the person evaluated, not just throw them in jail and forget about it. So I think that that's where we're heading with these kind of studies, that these women need to have a chance to determine whether they are uh, too young or whether or not they were coerced into this profession as opposed to being it was voluntary. And then what do you do with if they've got some of these disorders? What are we going to do about those disorders?
the uh, the situation with the care of people who have mental disorders uh, was on our minds last week when on our last show when we talked about the homeless and the unhoused and the difference came down to resources and the person's behavioral situation. If they were had mental issues, they were most often left to their own devices and ended up in the street homeless. Other people who were getting help may not have been homeless. They were unhoused. They were living in cars. They had a friend who would let them occupy a storage building at night, but they were not out in the cold in the coldest part of the night, simply because someone assisted them, or they were already had a vehicle that they could sleep in. And I see what you're saying about these women, especially black women, who don't even register on the baseline of what the investigations that go on. So it is. The picture is coming clearer that all these things that have been done, closing all the mental health facilities in the state of Tennessee and putting folks on the street, and then calling them homeless. Yeah, they're homeless because you took away the only secure place they could live. So
Well, we went too far. You know, we went from everybody being in a mental institution, being treated a certain kind of way, to everybody being turned out on the street, and without any real capacity. Because the only way you get into the Middle Tennessee psychiatric hospital here is you got to be arrested. The police had to take it. If you can't get yourself arrested, you can't get into the mental health. So yeah, it's and unfortunately, I think with what I'm hearing about how healthcare is being treated and funded in the current administration, help is not on the way.
no, it sounds like it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Yes.
A lot worse.
Yes.
And
A lot worse.
And if that happens, we're going to have more murders and stabbings and the thing that is unusual about that is that these stabbings and murders are occurring in public places, not in the neighborhood, but in places where people are all day walking, moving, and they still don't want to do anything about that. And I don't understand that at all.
Well, you know, people in power don't have a lot of that happen to them personally. And that can only be the explanation that I could come up with is that, you know, it's happening to other people, or other kind of people, or whatever, however you want to put it. And so, not us.
Man,
you know, at least with some light is being shown on this now. We're talking about it. And I think that there will come a time when these policies will be favorable toward everybody. People will be looked at as individuals, and some people going to want to do these kind of things, and they should be probably left to do it. But those people who just are being victimized, they deserve to have some to be rescued and be rehabilitated.
Civilization became civilization when people began to worry about other people and to assist them when they were in problematic circumstances and help them when they were hurt. And now we have gotten to the point where we don't want to help anybody. We'd rather watch them deteriorate and roll off into whatever. Doc, we're getting a little late in the hour. If you would, give us your last word for what we've talked about today.
Well, I think that we should look upon our homeless people who are potentially being obliged to do things against their will, and recognize it. And then something can be done about it. Right now, it's right in front of our faces all the time, and we're not seeing it. And so we need to know these clues and be prepared to act on them.
Well, you know we appreciate you being with us. Start looking for your next subject, and let me know when you're ready. Your information is so very well investigated and so very well presented. You are an asset to the community, and the fact that we're able to get your thoughts and work out in the community is valuable to the community and us. So continue, and I'll see you at the golf course.
thank, thank you very much. I'm looking forward to the next time, and I definitely will see you on the golf course.
All right. Take care, Doc.
Bye-bye. Sure.
At the beginning of the show, I talked about how my bout with gout had given me some very negative thoughts that I would never think I would be a part of. And as I look at it, we are in a place in this country where people are bewildered. People are wondering what's going on. And I don't want to, I'm not going to hate the office of the president or the man that occupies it. I'm not going to hate anybody. I refuse to go where they are. But I want to ask all you folks, not just people of color, but everybody, including the MAGA group, is this the America you envision? Is this what America means to you? The way the administration has destroyed people's lives, their livelihoods? Yes, cuts were needed because over the years we have accumulated a lot of folks who are just leaning on the goodness of the government, that we are so well endowed in this country. But is this what you see every day, your vision of America? Is this making America great again? Are you confused every time you hear something about helping the public to afford to be able to eat and buy their medications and drive a car without going into bankruptcy? Is that the vision of America you have? Is your vision of America no future because your child cannot get a quality education? Is that your vision of America? When you see public schools cut back, public schools are in communities where there are no black folks at all, especially in this state. What are you going to do with the cuts? The governor of this state is giving your money to the rich so they can go to these private integration academies. I call them integration academies because they were formed after Brown v. Education, the Board of Education rather, to take young white kids out of schools with my children, your grandchildren, not your great grandchildren, but with you, people my age, were the start of the integration of schools. Is that your vision of America? All these off-the-wall changes that are strangling folks who were already struggling. Is that your vision of America? Well, by God, if it is nowhere near mine. You have been listening to Let's Talk About It on North Nashville TV, the voice of the voiceless.